Welcome to The Grant, the EU funding podcast. The Grant. My name is Niels Toller Winter, and I'm the creator, editor, and host of The Grant. The Grant is an independent podcast initiative with the ambition to dig into all corners of the EU R&D funding system on topics of interest for the full EU R&D funding community. The AI series is a popular initiative. Of course, because many of you are sponges that just wants to get as much information, guidance, and critical mass on how to use the large language models. And the first 3 episodes in the series has been showered in enthusiasm since my dear guests Rita and Kristjan have very actively incorporated the tools in their workflow as proposals preparers. Now, we need some critical voices in this series, and we agreed in the last episode to try to get a proposal evaluator and an outspoken critic about the LLMs. So, here it is. Independent consultant and Horizon Europe evaluator Maria Daniela and Angione and Erasmus Plus proposal project expert Daiana Huber shares their concerns and critical points of view in a very nice discussion about the Chatbot-regime. In the first part of this double episode, Maria Daniela is giving an insight into the evaluator perspective on this development, and Rita and I have a chance to ask into how the evaluators navigate this new landscape. Please enjoy. Grant. Welcome to The Grant, the EU funding podcast. This today is the 4th episode of the AI series that I started up with Rita and Kristjan. A while ago, we released 3 episodes in the first half of 24, and heavily popular in my streaming figures, which is, of course, a mirror of how much people are looking into what this is and want more knowledge about the AI chatbots, the LLMs, and so on, whatever you want to call them. I have 3 guests today, and before I qualify what we're going to talk about, welcome Rita, Daiana, and Daniela.
Hello, Niels. Hello, guys.
And hey, and before anything else, I'm just going to ask each of you to present yourself. So, Daiana, can you shortly introduce yourself?
Well, the short introduction is ridiculously passionate about my work, up to the point that people think I'm a bit crazy. But I think this applies to all of us, because this is what we are doing, the work here. I'm a project writer, a grant developer, a person that tries to be at the forefront of how can we implement in practical ways the public policy of the European Commission on education, employment, and in my particular case, justice. Since 2004, I'm working on European projects. In 2006, I wrote my very first proposal concerning prisons, which was never heard until then for the people from education and employment in the European Commission. In 2012, I started a line of sequence projects with a centralized perspective in doing administrative capacity reform. So I work with the prisons for the people that live and work there. And in 2019, we have our very first and only Pact for Skills in Europe that refers to correctional competencies. And within this Pact for Skills, we have one more or less around 6 million euros, written by yours truly, to support upskilling and reskilling of people that work in the ecosystem. So this sums up why I'm here and why I think that I have a valid user point perspective.
Indeed, a passionate proposal writer, indeed. And people will be forgiven that if they think, have I heard this voice before? And you have. if you listen to this and you're regular, because she's been in here a couple of times before. Daniela, welcome. Can you share a little bit about yourself?
Hi, Niels, and thanks. So I can't be as passionate as Daiana because she's been so good at that. But so my name is Daniela Angione. I work as the head of funding and innovation in a private SME in Ireland. But since 2018, I have been working as evaluator of proposals for the European Commission for different programs, thinking about Horizon Europe, but also EIC. And then as the head of funding and innovation, so I worked. My background is academic. I worked as a research professor for 9 years in academia, and then moved to the private sector. And in the current company I'm working on, I write grant proposals as well as evaluating. That's me.
Thank you. And also, you are a former guest of this show, so it's always nice to have people back. Rita.
Hi, Niels. I'm Daniela and Daiana, of course, so it's very good to be back here. I have been also a research manager for many years, since 2004, actually also Daiana, so we have that in common. And I have been a grant writer for all that time, but my responsibilities in the amount of grant writing have been, evolving. And I think in the last almost 6 years, I have been changed from public institution, I worked in the university, to the private consulting, and have just recently found my own company. And I'm very, very dedicated to grant writing, but more specifically right now, I'm dedicated to how can we increase the competences on grant writing, either for grant writers or for researchers or for entrepreneurs. So how can we make people write better in an easier way, or some techniques and strategies? So that's me.
Thanks, which is incredibly clever if you're tired of putting together proposals. So use all the years of experience, of anxieties, of pressure, and stress, and put it into taking that and using it for something else to make a living.
Yes.
Well done. Thanks. And the clever listener, and all my listeners are clever, will now say, where's Kristjan? But Kristjan, he wrote me 30 minutes ago that he's stuck. He's in a clogged street in Slovenia. He's on his way home. So we hope he will be here in 30 minutes, 45 minutes. We'll see. So that's going to be a cliffhanger. I had it in a recent program that I released. Another one, the short should be he never came in. We'll see with Kristjan. Anyways. Now, let's qualify the baseline for this conversation we're going to have here, because Rita, in our last recording, we reflected, Kristjan, you and me, because we've been having an introduction to what is this, what are the LLMs, and then we've been discussing in the second episode how to use them as a tool. And then in the last episode, we discussed practical versus philosophical. Like, how do you use these tools? What do you need to be aware of? Should you be hesitating, and so on? And in that conversation, naturally, we came on to, well, not everybody thinks this is a fantastic thing. And I know from my LinkedIn feed that Daiana, she's a critical person around the LLMs. So of course, this is not about getting Daiana and then convincing her that this is a good, this is a fantastic thing. This is about getting a different point of view about an important thing that will massively roll over, not only within this area, but in where they are rolling these machines all over our everyday lives and our professional lives and in everything all spheres of society, it's going to have a massive impact. But that doesn't mean that you don't have to be critical about it. Maybe that's exactly why you need to make sure that there's a critical mass. So we agreed that it would be a lovely thing to have a person in to put some points at the painful spots that enthusiasts they maybe oversee. In relation to the proposal preparation and writing research qualified proposals for research grants. And then why do we have Daniela on board? Now, Daniela, you're an evaluator. So in the same conversation, we thought it would be nice to have an evaluator in, because per se, the approach from the European Commission on this is you don't use them. It's cheating. And but how do you place yourself as an evaluator between those two nails? So you have a whole community of beneficiaries that are obviously using them, and then you have the commission that are saying, no, you're not allowed. We do not recommend that you do these. So how do you deal with that within the evaluator community? And what's the perception? What are the discussions? Maybe from the commission and to the evaluators, how do you deal with this fact? Because the commission is not stupid. Of course, they know that they're using it. So how do you deal with this? That's the baseline for this conversation that we're going to have today. So in all, now, when I sat down and did the rundown, maybe I shouldn't even do a rundown, because it can take a lot of twists and turns here and there. But I tried to make a frame of how we will have this conversation, and I even actually considered to split it up. But we'll take it step by step. It might be 2 programs that I make it 1 and 2. But for now, we're just gonna attack it. And what I put here in the beginning is AI and the Critic fly-in. So it's a fly-in on what we're dealing with is now. I just took the first thing here, why we are having this conversation, why you invited. Now, Kristjan was supposed to give the short update of what they are, these LLMs. But maybe Rita, since he's not here, because you have also a good overview. So just to frame what we're talking about here.
Okay, so large language models are really on the basis of everything that we are discussing. And what they are is very, very complex and sophisticated computer programs that run on algorithms and neural networks. And what they are trained is to analyze information, written information. So they are language models, because they analyze information that is written, and they analyze it and they discover patterns. They recognize patterns. And once they do that, they can generate similar patterns. And as they are learning over information, written information, that it's in a huge amount. That's why they are large language models. And of course, they analyze amount that it's big enough for them to generate patterns, having in mind what they have learned in. So the data in doing the algorithms were tested. And what has been happening in it, with everything, with the ChatGPT, etc., is that this generation of text, it's nothing more than what the model knows that statistically is a pattern, that when you talk about this word, similar words are around it from what they have studied. So it's really a creation of a human-like text, but in fact, it's analyzing patterns and statistically putting one words next to the others, as it has learned that they are statistically connected to each other. So this is a little bit what's behind the LLMs.
And of course, in this context, they are machines, as most people, listeners of this program will know, it has moved into all kinds of other areas. But basically, it started with text.
Yes.
Yeah. So naturally, when you write a proposal, that's majority of what you make. It's text analysis. You make outlines. You make structures of text. How to structure a a rollout, a description, a work plan, and so on. It's text in boxes, might be, but it's, and that is why it's so very quickly when it came out. The writing community that proposed the grants, R&D grants writing community, it immediately jumped to say yes, savior.
And we can see that the vast majority of professions that deal with producing information, it's producing information via writing a grant, if it's producing information via coding, if it's producing information via writing an article. So the vast majority of these professions have been the ones, at least initially, most impacted by this possibility, the usage of the model.
Yeah, and what has happened naturally is that, in which Kristjan has been a driving force actually in the community in Europe. He was added early on and started to develop his own machine, so to say, in the machine, as you can do, and sharing it with the community and how to do it, how to work with it, and so on. Extremely generous, so to say, but working with the business model of the more I share, the better I get closer to the people who wants to use me as a consultant. So he has been doing a lot of this, building up, digging into how you can use them in his professional as a consultant, grants writing consultant. Status, it's getting more and more complex, no, Rita?
Yes, it's getting more and more complex, and the kind of capabilities, specifically in the area of visual information and image generation and image analysis, has been quite impressive. And during the summer, that is the most important development I could pick up from news, etc. So to give you a very interesting example, it was analyzing short videos and analyze the video, say what's happening, say what are the faces of the people, etc. With no audio, it was just visual. And so the capability of the model of learning that, and of course they are very interesting. Of course, they are also very dangerous. We all know that, but it's a very interesting approach. I think that there has been a big effort on regulation, on transparency, more and more research centers or in initiatives on transparency, on taking out the black box about what happens with the large language model and make it more accessible to everyone to understand what's happening behind it when it generates this information. So I think that the status is going to be, this is unstoppable from my point of view. This is going to keep going. I hope that the community can guide it in the direction that we all want.
Yeah, then I think there's also the focus on the security of using data. It's a big focus. The organization I work for, and I think most people sitting in organizations, when you talk about this, so of course the companies that are developing these and behind them, they of course understand and acknowledge this, so they start making secure solutions and so on and so forth. So that's because that's a natural development with this. No, that's that. That's fine as an introduction, because we need to get going with having the conversation that we have been looking forward to. Why we have these two new guests on board. So first of all, Daniela, Evaluator. I put here that you maybe start off shortly with your perception, your own perception as an evaluator about this development when you as a person that has to sit and analyze and measure, what do you say, rate them?
Yeah, I mean, I have a very conflicting opinion about AI, in the sense that in general, I consider that as an opportunity for everybody, and I'm talking about even writing a grant proposal using AI for a very, very limited scope. But possibly even, from many other things, even from the evaluating point of view, because there's been discussions even, why don't you use AI to evaluate a proposal as well? And why do we need an evaluator, right? And so what is the middleman then the scientist doing in all of this? Like the scientist is the middleman, the one who develops research is a bit, there's a bit of confusion there. But on the other side, and I'm talking here from both the point of view of a person who writes a grant, but also evaluate a grant, right? So part of, for me, writing a grant, a huge part of the pleasure for me of writing a grant, because, I think we forget the element of, writing a proposal is also can be fun, is the creative process you go through, right? So yeah, I mean, it's obvious, the innovation is obvious, you have to develop a breakthrough technology, an idea, and something that nobody has done it before. But it's the creativity that you put into the mix. And from the point of view of the evaluator is the critical thinking, right? So we go through the proposal and we evaluate the proposal. And the first thing that you have to develop over the years is trying to see through the surface. So a lot of proposals, they are very well packaged, very well presented. I have to say, in many situations, in the sense that, and now the proposal writing and submission is so competitive that you often really find yourself in evaluating a very good proposal on the surface. Then you have to dig deep. And trying to understand, if what you see in the first screening, or when we evaluate a proposal, it actually has what kind of depth it has. And when you go through in this iteration, when you evaluate the proposal, then I believe it's inevitable that if a person that is submitting their proposal has used AI, especially with the current development of AI for writing grant proposal, I'm trying to be positive about it. You would be able to spot it, okay? And I'm not even getting to the point where you look at the results, and sometimes you see where the results that they don't match what they claim, and you look at what they present in terms of experimental preliminary results, and you go through really the nitty-gritty of the proposal. I'm only I'm thinking about even when you go through the second screening of the proposal. So I am confident enough that, but on the other hand, though, sorry, Niels, if I'm going back and forth. On the other hand, there are some other. Look, I've been doing this for many years, and even without taking into account the AI aspect that we are discussing today, there are other more new to the evaluation process, like new evaluators that usually every year they kind of increase the pool. The European Commission increase the pool, and new experts are called that they have less experience in dealing with evaluating the proposal, and it's not anybody's fault, but they have to develop that kind of skills in going through the proposals, and they might be a bit more, let's say, fooled probably. And that could be an issue there. I could see the issue there, and I could see why this is becoming a problem. Like it is a problem, and has to be regulated, and there needs to be an intervention by the European Commission. Now, if you ask me what kind of intervention, I actually don't know. There's many discussions, going on in terms of, for example, as I said, do we implement a screening procedure in the platform? When there is the submission of the proposal that they're going to screen, and trying to spot which one are the one that have used AI. But then the question, from my point of view, is why can we not use AI to do the literature, research? That is an automated kind of approach that, if you use a keywords, you could maybe save some time. But that, from my point of view, is probably the only aspect that I would really see as beneficial, and it wouldn't affect the quality, the originality, the innovation, the critical aspect, the creativity in writing a grant proposal.
Now, thanks, Rita. No, it's we need this. It's very important. Rita, when we've been having the conversation about this, Kristjan, you and I, what we agreed on, especially I'm not using it because I'm not writing proposals, but you, the two of you, was that this is not a magic wand. This is a tool to make you better as a proposal writer. So you don't become a proposal writer just because out of the blue, just because we now have AI machines. So the reason why Kristjan has been so enthusiastic about the fact that this development has arrived is because he's a slow writer. Yeah? So he's been struggling a lot as a professional, hours and hours and hours, we all know it, with this backbreaking work of writing. If you're not if you're not a journalistic, if it's not like it just spits out of your fingers in the keyboard, right? But you know how to analyze R&D, idea, develop a nice concept that is super a breakthrough, state of the art. You know how to get the right partners. But the writing part is something that is a rough one. This nuances a little bit on this because it's Kristjan. He's excellent. And his proposal has become better by using them, but he's not less working on them. There might be proposals where he saves a little bit on time, but he is not backtracking on the quality of the text. It's not like he just lets the text in there and then he leaves it. Oh, that's done. He gets the suggestions and then he works actively with it as a professional to make it a strong proposal. And I think, Rita, it's the same way you work, no?
Yes, it's the same way I work. From a cognitive point of view, when you are analyzing something that it's there, it's a different process from when you are creating something completely from scratch. And the writing evolves usually in different phases. You are creating, and then you are analyzing and criticizing what you have done. And this is how you go back and forth and you improve your text. And what I do believe is that the first important part, the first important part of text that I can have in some aspect, and particularly the aspects that I struggle more, I have my idea of what I want to put there. And sometimes I struggle a little bit, okay, how do I start? And when you are faced in something that is already written, and sometimes you think, oh, this is definitely not how I want it written. But it helps a lot. Some parts could be good. Some parts could be interesting. It can even bring some new ideas that can be worth exploring or not. But it's definitely a support tool to the process of writing.
And I think that's the main thing, because I would claim that if one of Kristjan's proposals, you won't be able to see that was done by AI. I'm very sure Rita's also, you wouldn't be able to say but if you get proposals in where you are slow, where you have people that are just using it to cut corners, and then you can see it.
Yes.
And that's not the right way to use it, because it's the same as writing a bad proposal and getting a low score. Yeah, that's the same. Like not being a good professional around the work that you do.
Daniela, have you already been confronted with situations where it really seems apparent to you that, I am sure that they exist, but have you seen a proposal where there are parts that it's clear to you that this was generative AI?
See, it's hard in the sense that I don't want to be biased by this idea when I evaluate a proposal. No, because like the risk is that I don't want to mystify this AI, right? In the sense that what especially in the evaluation process, if I have this in the back of my mind that I could get an AI written proposal, then I don't feel like I'm giving justice to the proposal that I'm evaluating. I have evaluated a lot of bad proposals. Where in which sense now I'm trying to explain to you, in the sense that probably some of them were written with AI because there was this connection between some of the concept they were trying to develop, because the text was polished and well written, but there was really there's no flow. There was no flow in the way in which the proposal were presented, and that was clear. And the hard part, though, from the evaluator point of view, is that, and I don't think this is stressed enough, when we, at least this is what happens to me, when I evaluate a proposal and I give a low score, even when the proposal is well written, the proposal, all the sections are there, you can tick a lot of the boxes, but when as I said, there is a lack of flow, there's a lack of, you feel that there's something not right there, that the depth is not there, there's not enough originality, then you have to justify the score that you are giving. And justifying a low score is becoming harder and harder, because I have, consciously, I can't give a low score and not have evidence of that. I have to provide evidence. But sometimes you find other evaluators, because usually it's not just one, you have at least 3 evaluators, right? Sometimes we struggle when we have the consensus meeting in trying to bring out and elaborate a bit more on why we're giving a low score, because then we have the quality controller that is on our neck and says, but why did you score so low if you haven't really explained well what is the problem here? And so that's the challenge there. But I wouldn't like to think, Rita, that I don't want to bias myself and unconsciously bias myself by thinking that a poor proposal, and when I am in that situation, it's because they're using AI. We don't know. We can't spot it at the moment. I can have some suspicious, but I'd rather focus myself on the task that I need to be fair. I need to be clever and critical, yes. So keep my critical, approach to what I'm reading, and trying to unbias myself by the fact that I like that topic rather than, I would have done it differently, and trying to be, objective on what we're trying to do here. But it's becoming harder and harder because of that. When you are in that gray area where, you see that something is missing, it's not clear exactly what is missing. So you have to go through and discuss with the other evaluator, and usually the iterations that from one, sometimes it's funny because, well, it's not funny, but like when there is a good proposal, you spot it right away. And when it's an original proposal and that proposal is going to be funded, there's no really questions there, and it's immediately clear. But unfortunately, those are not very common. And there's many of the other proposals where they are in the middle, right? That you struggle with during the evaluation process, and you struggle with in trying to find a consensus with the other evaluator, because, as I said, usually the European Commission works in terms that they try to place a new evaluator together with an experienced one, so there's a balance there. But sometimes it doesn't happen. So it's a bit of we need to strike a balance there.
Daniela, have you received, do you receive guidelines from the Commission on this?
No, not explicitly.
Or rules, or
no.
have you received a message saying, look, if you spot it?
We receive warnings, be aware of this, be aware this is going on, be aware.
What is it that they want? What are they exactly saying?
that there's an increasing using of AI in writing proposal, and we need to be aware that this has to be we have to try to spot it in the sense that it's considered basically plagiarism. Like it's like you're using because the AI is creating new text by using is trained on data, and so by using somebody else's text, and so inevitably you're not being original in using a proposal.
That's what we've been discussing in the episodes, that it especially when I've been sitting with people like Kristjan and Rita, that makes them better proposal writers creatively and more solid professionals. Yep. And then it's so that's the schism we're talking about here, that from the funding administrator it's perceived as copying, but cheating, but from the professionals or segment of the professionals, it's perceived as a tools that makes much greater text.
Yeah, but Niels, I think there's a difference there from what I've heard from Rita, she was saying, and the way Rita and probably Kristjan, from what my understanding, they're using the tool, is that they are using the tool as a supporting system for what they've already have developed or they in their head, but like here we're trying to discriminate those, and that's why I don't like mystifying too much this AI tool, because there's as in everything else, in my opinion. So there's people using the tool that should enable an enabling tool, right? Mm-hmm. A tool then can provide a shortcut to something. So somebody who has maybe less knowledge, less experience, that would like to get away with submitting a proposal by using AI and writing a proposal instead of in 6 months, in a month.
Of course you have them. 2 weeks. Of course you have them. Yeah, because you get so many thousands of
exactly.
I think 100,000 proposals submitted every year.
So is that what we should be looking and look out for, and trying to avoid, not using AI as an enabler, for writing a better proposal. That doesn't mean that it gives you a better idea. The idea is yours, and what you want to do with that, is optimizing the way you write. But that's, generally I don't go and evaluate a writing style of a proposal. Like it just has to be clear, has to tick all the boxes for a specific section. You have to address specific issue that you've been asked to. You have to be original. You have to provide a breakthrough idea, and you have to support with evidence. And that's a different story. And if you are maybe not a good writer in the first place, and you want to use a tool to help you a bit, that's not why. I don't think that's what we are discussing here about, right, Niels?
No.
Well,
a curious question. Yeah, come.
Yes, I understand. I think I understand perfectly what you are saying, Daniela, and at a certain point I agree with that. And putting myself in the spot of a funder, as a funder perspective, I can understand the need for warnings, but on the other hand, as a user, what I do feel is that someone that uses exclusively AI to make a proposal, the funder doesn't need to worry. It's not going to be funded. So this is a little bit of like we are warning the evaluators towards something that they would naturally do, because it just will not be a good one. Yeah.
And those bad proposals will come anyways.
Yeah,
they will still
of course,
be there.
They have always come, even without AI. So they're always every year in so many calls. There's always someone that thinks I can pull this off in 2 weeks, and let's do it, right? Even without AI. So it's, but on the other hand, and I think this is more my perspective of what I personally think I miss. It's not so much on the warning It's much more on the learning. It's much, because telling that AI is plagiarism, well, we could discuss that a little bit, but it's not something new. It's kind of even a redundant sentence. What I am missing is, how could the European Commission put this to good use, to enhance evaluators, to train evaluators, to give them exercises of spotting things? So it's a little bit more focusing on the warning. I understand that, but I feel so much more could be done. So it's a little bit of my position.
Of course, the first thought the Commission had when this spiraled was that shit. Now we're gonna get 10,000s of proposals. It's undermining our whole funding system. Like stuff like it. Probably you would have alarmists within the Commission and say, ban it, stop it now. But the thing is, what is true here is you cannot stop it. And it's like saying stop using instead of walking, stop using that wheel, it's better walking. You cannot. This is unstoppable. So it's a matter of eventually the Commission will need, but it's a big machine, right? But they will need to have a way of guiding instead of, let's say, here you have the warnings and here you have the guidelines of how to use this in a proper way, without breaking data, without plagiarism, without using it as a tool. But this is what it's good for. This don't do. We will do what we can to pick the warnings up, so to say.
Yeah, but the process is taking a bit of time. So
Indeed.
I agree with what Rita said and with what you said, Niels. And I think, as I said, AI could be used to enable and inform and used as a learning platform as well for the evaluator. Yeah, I completely agree.
I'm curious. Do you discuss this in between you as evaluators? It's a conversation you have. Have you discussed with other evaluators about the topic of AI? Because this is a curious topic, right? Is it something where you have exchanged? If you don't want to share it, but I'm just curious about, because it's so much on the spot for everybody within grant writing. So it also should be in the receiving end of the funding system and the independent evaluators. What do we do? How do you perceive this? How do you perceive? I would myself, if I was an evaluator, I would ask others in the community. So how do you do? What we also discussed was that some of the evaluators might even use them themselves to evaluate them already.
Oh God, I hope not.
Don't say that.
I am sure that they will, but I am so sad about it, just because of the security issues. This is again another thing that I think that the European Commission is lacking. This is unstoppable, and the Commission should have a safe platform for the evaluators to test whatever they want and check whatever they want and take their own reflections and conclusions. But what I am really worried is about the possibility of some evaluator, just submitting things and checking the privacy issues that could arise from that.
It's a real risk, because usually evaluators are overloaded with proposals.
Yes.
So the temptation of going in that direction, I think, is it might be quite strong for some.
The rate is not high, so there you have another motivation.
Exactly. But there's to answer to you, both of you, there's no such a platform where we can, discuss. Actually, sometimes there's a lot of criticism of the platform that we use, that it has to be updated, and it's not. It doesn't work to the level that is supposed to be. And Niels, do we discuss explicitly? No, but no. But I think I think there's since a lot of the evaluators, they usually also write grant proposal, because evaluators usually are picked by, in terms of what they are selected by, your expertise, and what most of the time, a lot of the evaluators also write proposals. So I think we are all well aware, and no, there hasn't been. I haven't discussed this with the other evaluators, but I have discussed, I've been asked many times by other people, about this, and about so both if I'm using to evaluate proposal, and if I'm using it for writing proposal, and my answer has always been the same, no. But not because I am against AI. Again, I think it's a great opportunity, and I welcome using it. It's just that for evaluating, I really don't see how that could work. Really can't. In any of the tasks that an evaluator needs to do, I can't see it. And for writing the proposal, I enjoy the writing part as well. So I kind of I really like writing. So the literature research for me, it's a bit of a pain because I waste a lot of time. I think for me that is the time they can be used differently. So that probably is an aspect I would welcome the use. But from the evaluator point of view, no, I don't see it. I really don't see it.
Now, Daiana, you've been so quiet.
Absolutely. Au contraire to my. Absolutely.
You've been so quiet, and it's sticking very much to the narrative here of the blogs, first the Evaluator, then the Critic. But so can you, now we still in the evaluating corner here, you've been writing so many proposals in your professional career.
Yep.
Now, there's a bridge to the second blog here. And thoughts?
Yes, plenty of thoughts, and I've been sitting here quiet like a library mouse, absorbing.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Grant. All the Grant episodes have their own site on the Grant website. You'll find the link in the episode notes where you listen to your podcast. On the site for this episode, you'll find a link to Maria Daniela's, Danya's, and Rita's personal LinkedIn sites. I also link to their respective organizations. Next week, you will get the second half of the double episode, and here Dania shares why she would never consider using the large language models, which moves into a nice reflected discussion about what to be aware of when using them. This is indeed content you don't want to miss. Remember that the Grant would really like to join some EU proposals as a partner or subcontractor. I'm slowly getting interested feedback from having the Grant included in proposals for 2025 calls. If this is also of your interest, if you think this could be great, reach out. Finally, don't hesitate reaching out if you want your own episodes flagging topics of importance for you specifically. Grant's consultancy company Inspire Science have their own series with 3 episodes flagging their capacities within different areas of supporting research organizations towards funding. You can have that as well, so don't hesitate if you think this is a great way of flagging your capacities. See you next week.